Kids, today I'm going to read chapters 10 and 11 of Stuart Little. Chapter 10, Springtime. Snowbell the cat enjoyed nighttime more than daytime. Perhaps it was because his eyes liked the dark, but I think it was because there are always so many worthwhile things going on in New York City at night. Snowbell had several friends in the neighborhood. Some of them were house cats, others were store cats. He knew a Maltese cat, a white Persian, a tortoiseshell, a tiger cat, and a beautiful young Angora who had escaped from a cage in a pet shop on 3rd Avenue and had gone to live a free life of her own in a small park near Stewart's house. One fine spring evening, Snowbell had been calling on the Angora in the park. He started home late, and it was such a lovely night. She said she would walk along with him to keep him company. When they got to Mr. Little's house, the two cats sat down at the front of a tall vine, and you can see in the picture they're talking here and they're in front of the vine, which ran up the side of the house past George's bedroom. This vine was useful to Snowbell because he could climb in it at night and crawl into the house through George's open window. Snowbell began telling his friends about Margalo and Stuart. Goodness, said the Angora cat. You mean to say you live in the same house with a bird and a mouse and you don't do anything about it? That's the situation, replied Snowbell, but what can I do about it? Please remember that Stuart is a member of the family and the bird is a permanent guest like myself. Well, said Snowbell's friend, all I can say is you've got more self-control than I have. Doubtless, said Snowbell. However, I sometimes think I've got too much self-control for my own good. I've been terribly nervous, and I think it's because I'm always holding myself in. The cats' voices grew louder, and they talked so loudly that they never heard a pigeon who had been sleeping close by. This sounds like an interesting conversation, said the pigeon. Maybe I better stick around and see if I can learn something. Look here, he heard the Angora cat say to Snowbell. I admit there's a cat that has a duty toward her own people, and under the circumstances it would be wrong for you to eat Margalo. But I'm not a member of your family, and there's nothing to stop me from eating her, is there? Nothing that I can think of, said Snowbell. Uh-oh. What do you think's going to happen next? Then here I go, said the Angora, starting up the vine. The pigeon was wide awake by this time, ready to fly away, but the voices down below continued. Wait a minute, said Snowbell. Don't be in such a hurry. I don't think you better go in there tonight. Why? Asked the other cat. Well, for one thing, you're not supposed to go in our house. It's illegal, and you might get in trouble. I won't get into any trouble, said the Angora. Please wait till tomorrow night, said Snowbell. Mr. and Mrs. Little will be out of town, and you won't be taking such a risk. It's for your own good I'm suggesting this. Oh, all right, agreed the Angora. I guess I can wait, but tell me where I can find the bird after I do get in. That's simple, said Snowbell. Climb this vine, go in George's room through the open window, go downstairs, and you'll find the bird asleep in the Boston fern on the bookcase. Easy enough, said the Angora, licking her chops. I'm obliged to you, sir. Oh, and here's the pigeon writing a note. And who do you think that she's writing the note to? Who needs to be warned here in this story? What do you think's going to happen next? So, well, the old thing, whispered the pigeon to himself, and he flew away quickly to find a piece of writing paper and a pencil. Snowbell said good night to his friend and climbed up the vine and went to bed. Next morning, Margalo found a note. It said, beware of a strange cat who will come by night. It was signed, a well-wisher. She kept the note under her wing all day long, wondering what she had better do, but she didn't show it to anyone, not even to Stuart. She couldn't eat. She was so frightened. What had I better do? She kept saying to herself. And finally, just before dark, she hopped up to an open window, and without telling anyone where she's going, she flew away. She flew north because something inside her told her that north was the way to go for a bird when spring comes to the land. And here is a picture. You can't see it very well, but Margalo just flew out through the open window, didn't say goodbye to anyone. What do you think about that? How do you think Stuart's going to react? Chapter 11, The Automobile. For 3 days, everybody hunted all over the house for Margalo without finding so much as a feather. I guess she had spring fever, said George. A normal bird doesn't stay inside in this kind of weather. Perhaps she's got a husband somewhere, said Mr. Little. She has not, sobbed Stuart. That's just a lot of nonsense. How do you know? Asked George. Because I asked her one time and she said she was single, said Stuart. Everybody questioned Snowbell very carefully, but the cat insisted he didn't know anything about it. So what do you think? Would Snowbell be your top suspect? Stuart was heartbroken. He had no appetite, refused food, and lost weight. Finally, he decided he would run away from home without telling anybody and go out in the world and look for Margalo. Well, since I'm going, I may as well seek my fortune too, he thought. Before daybreak next morning, he got out his biggest handkerchief and in it he placed his toothbrush, money, soap, comb and brush, a clean suit of underwear, and his pocket compass. He also took one hair from his mother's comb to remember her by. And here you see in the picture, he's taking one hair from his mother's comb. He's going to wrap that up and take it with him. Do you think he's making the right decision not telling anyone? Then he rolled everything up into a bundle and tied it on the end of a wooden match. With his gray felt hat, he put it on his head and slung his pack across his shoulder, and he stole out of the house. Goodbye, beautiful home, he whispered. I wonder if I will ever see you again. Stuart stood uncertainly for a moment in the street in front of the house. The world was a big place. Which way should he go? North, south, east, and west? He decided to ask his friend Dr. Carey, the owner of the wasp that he had sailed earlier. He decided to go visit him. The doctor was glad to see Stuart. He took him into his office where he was busy pulling a man's tooth. The man's name was Edward Clydesdale, and he had lots of gauze in his cheek to hold his mouth open wide and good. The tooth was a hard one to get out, and the doctor let Stuart sit on his instrument tray so they could talk during the operation. This is my friend, Stuart Little, he said to the man. How are you, Stuart? Replied the man as best as he could. Here's a picture. This is Stuart. Look how tiny he looks as he's leaving, going out into the great big world to look for Margalo. What do you think? Do you think he'll be able to find Margalo? What's on your mind, Stuart? Said Dr. Carey. I ran away from home this morning. I'm going out into the world to seek my fortune and look for a lost bird. Which direction should I go? Dr. Carey said, What color is the bird? Brown, said Stuart. Better go north. Don't you think so, Mr. Clydesdale? Look in Central Park, said Mr. Clydesdale. That's a giant park in the middle of New York City. What? Cried Stuart. I say, look in Central Park, said Mr. Clydesdale. And it's a good suggestion. Central Park is a favorite place for birds in the spring. If you can't locate a bird in Central Park, then maybe you should check out the Hartford Railway in Connecticut. The railway would be a train in Connecticut. Mr. Clydesdale took a glass of mouthwash that was beside the chair and rinsed his mouth out. Tell me this, Stuart, how are you traveling? On foot? Yes, sir, said Stuart. Well, I think you better have a car. As soon as I get this tooth out, we'll see what can be done about it. So he grabbed Mr. Clydesdale's tooth and pulled with all of his might. After that, he took a tiny automobile from a shelf about 6 inches long. The most perfect miniature automobile Stuart had ever seen. It was bright yellow with black fenders, a streamlined car of graceful design. I made this myself, Dr. Carey said. I enjoy building model cars and boats and other things when I'm not taking out teeth. This car has real gasoline in it. You think you can handle it, Stuart? Certainly, replied Stuart, looking into the driver's seat and blowing the horn. But isn't it going to attract too much attention? Won't everybody stop and stare at it? They would if they could see you, but nobody will be able to see you or the car. Why not? Asked Stuart. Because this automobile is a thoroughly modern car. It's not only noiseless, it's invisible. Nobody can see it. I can see it, remarked Stuart. Push that little button, said the doctor. Instantly the car vanished from sight. Now push it again. Now how can I push it when I can't see it? Asked Stuart. Feel around for it. So Stuart felt around until his hand came in contact with a button. It seemed like the same button, and Stuart pushed it. He heard a slight grinding noise and felt something slip out from under his hand. Hey, watch out! You pushed the starter button. She's off. There she goes. She's loose in the room. Now we'll never catch her. He grabbed Stuart and placed him up high on a table where he wouldn't be hit by the runaway car. And here's a picture of the car. See, it's an old classic. Oh, mercy, mercy, Stuart cried when he realized what he had done. It was a very awkward situation. Neither Dr. Carey nor Stuart could see the little automobile, yet it was rushing all over the room under its own power, bumping into things. There were crashing noises by the fireplace, by tables, then by the trash can. The doctor would pounce and he would hear a crash, pounce, crash. The doctor was racing all over the room, pouncing and missing. It was almost impossible to catch an invisible car. Uh-oh, yelled Stuart, jumping up and down. I'm sorry, Dr. Carey. I'm so sorry. Get a butterfly net, shouted the doctor. I can't, cried Stuart. I'm not big enough to carry it. That's true. I forgot. My apologies, Stuart. The car is bound to stop sometime, said Stuart, because it will run out of gas. Okay, so here's the trash can that's being hit. And then here's the dentist searching frantically for this invisible car. That's true, said the doctor, and so he and Stuart sat down and waited patiently until they no longer heard any crashing sounds in the room. Then the doctor got down on his hands and knees and crawled all over, feeling here and there until at last he found the car. It was in the fireplace, buried up to its hubs in wood ashes. The doctor pressed the proper button, and there it stood in plain sight again. Its front fenders crumbled, its radiator leaking, the headlights were broken, its windshield shattered, the right rear tire punctured, and quite a bit of yellow paint scratched off the hood. What a mess, groaned the doctor. Stuart, I hope this will be a lesson you never push a button on an automobile unless you're sure of what you're doing. Yes, sir, answered Stuart, his eyes filled with tears. It had been an unhappy morning, and Stuart was already homesick. He was sure he was never going to see Margalo again. And here's Stuart by the car. It's all crashed, and of course he can't drive it anymore. So, what do you think? Do you think that Stuart will be able to find Margalo? Let's find out in the next chapter. See you later.